This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with Eau Claire County. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9.
So welcome everyone. I'm pleased to call this meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors to order here on Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of reflection by Supervisor Jim Dunning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, we start the approval of the 2018 county budget as a committee of the whole with a goal of finalizing the budget. We will be reviewing what subcommittees, department directors, and administration have been reviewing since early in the year. Input has been received and evaluated for each department and then reconsidered as to what is best for the citizens of Eau Claire County for now and in the future. As we consider this budget, it brings into perspective what our role is as county supervisors. What were we really elected to do? We are looking at a budget that provides a minimum level for helping the least of these, for providing for the sick, the homeless, and the elderly, for helping the incarcerated, for assisting the veterans who have given us our freedom, for providing the basic necessities for community existence such as roads and bridges, for guiding the development of a better local economy, for protecting the planet that was given to us by past generations so we could give it to the generations to come, and at the same time providing for more than 500 employees and protecting the financial health of the county taxpayers. We are doing as elected representatives what would be difficult for individuals. This document becomes a symbol of our beliefs as humans. It becomes a moral document. This budget is a moral statement of our priorities. It tells us mathematically what areas, issues, things, or people are most important to the creators of this budget and which are least important. As I processed this thought, I found it to be very appropriate for us as a county board to fully understand how the decisions we make tonight not only provide for the health, safety, and prosperity of our community, but also how these decisions affect those who pay the taxes. We have a moral duty to recognize and understand how we as elected officials strengthen our community, our nation, our world, and lift up those who are struggling and to work toward the good for all. The Finance and Budget Committee, department administrators, oversight committees, and the administration have tried to bring these principles to you in this budget with new approaches, department collaboration, awareness of state law, and attempt to prevent future problems. Let us begin the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dunning. Now, if supervisors would take your keypads, please, and indicate your presence this evening to establish a quorum. Supervisor Cronick, if you get one more, Chilson's not here. Thank you very much. We have 28 present. We have a quorum. Move on to the approval of the journal proceedings from October 17th. Are there any suggested changes to the journal proceedings as drafted? I see none. I entertain a motion to approve those. So a motion by Supervisor Mortimer, second by Supervisor Beckfield. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor please say aye. Aye. Opposed no. Motion carries. This meeting is different than all of our other meetings. We don't have a public comment period. What we have here, it's related to the budget, is a public hearing. And we ask that individuals speak to the budget. And we have 4 individuals this evening. We ask folks to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. And we'll start with Mary Pika Anderson. So Mary, if you'd come forward, and then Lynette Meyer to be on deck. So good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Is it on? It's on. No, it's not on. No. Okay. Well, I am Mary Pika Anderson, and I am the Executive Director at the Allie Phillips Senior Center. And I know we're not required to come to this meeting, but each year I have to tell you that I look forward to coming to this meeting for two main reasons. One is it gives the Senior Center an opportunity to thank each and every one of you, the county board, for their support of our center. The other is to let you know that all of us at the center are so excited at working, in working with this population, and we can't do it without you. So we really appreciate your support. Every day at the center, we have the opportunity to work with the most frail seniors, 89 years, 90 years old, to the very vibrant, healthy baby boomers that have just retired and decided that they wanted to come to the center and learn something new. The dollars that the county gives us, we use to support the large variety of programs that we do at the center that work with the very large variety of ages that we encounter at the center. So we work hard to program for a purpose. A lot of those programs are geared to providing opportunities for our population to look at disease prevention programs, health maintenance programs, social programs that allow them to be socially connected, because we know that's so important to a positive mental health attitude for people that are aging. Educational programs, because we know they want to continue to learn, and we know that'll keep their brains sharp. So this holistic approach that we use at the center gives us the opportunity to really address one of our main missions, and that is to help the aging population maintain independence as they age in our community. We know by being independent, they're out in the communities supporting our local businesses, not just financially, but also through many, many volunteer hours. So thank you for your support. I always like to offer you the opportunity to come to the center. We'd be happy to give you a tour. Many of you can join us. I think Jim just told me he became an official member. So welcome, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Lynette Meyer, welcome. And Becky Sneen would be next. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Lynette Meyer, and I am here to talk on behalf
Can
of...
I just ask you to move the
Sure.
mic up towards you?
Towards me,
Thank you.
like that?
Yeah.
Better?
Thank you.
Excellent. On behalf of treatment court funding. First off, Sarah Ferber just asked me to do this like yesterday, so I'm hopelessly unprepared, but I'm just going to use up my 3 minutes and just real briefly tell you the difference that the drug court has made in my life. Going back just a couple of years, when I got arrested the first time in 2012 and proceeded to get arrested something like 8 or 9 more times over the next 18 months, I finally got the opportunity to enroll and participate in the Eau Claire County Drug Court. And in the 4 years that followed that, my life has been completely different. And I'm just going to... I don't know how many of you have personally been affected by addiction, but I know that for me, what happened was it totally changed who I was. But when I started in drug court, that's when I started hearing phrases like, cognitive thinking and criminal thinking and, to reference my DBT skills, using your wise mind, things like that. These were things that I'd never heard before. And when I got to drug court, I think that was the first time that anybody ever asked me, not like, why did you do this again? Why do you keep messing up? Why do you keep making these mistakes? But why do you use to begin with? What is it that you're covering up, that you're hiding, that you're running from? What's going on? And that's when I had to kind of go back and think about what my use really was all about. And I found that I wasn't alone in finding out that a lot of people were using to self-medicate a different problem. And thanks to drug court, I got to investigate those problems. I got to figure out what else I could do about them, how to fix them if they're fixable, how to manage them if they're not. And I was just saying to Becky before, even if I had just gotten sober but not had the help the drug court gave me, I would never be up here. You would never see me up here because I didn't feel worthwhile. I didn't feel like I just wouldn't have been brave enough. I wouldn't have felt like I had anything to say that would interest people like you. Okay, if that makes sense, and that's not a down on you. That's a down on me. So all I can say, I guess, is that I appreciate the treatment court funding that's in the budget, and in my opinion, it's really worthwhile. In the last 4 years, I've gotten my associate's degree at the Tech. I work 2 jobs. I foster dogs. I volunteer at the Humane Association, and I get the opportunity to speak to juveniles through restorative justice, who are hopefully, they're on their first and maybe last trip through the system regarding drug and alcohol use. And without drug court, where I would be right now, I would be just finishing my 4th out of 6 years in prison, and none of that other stuff would have happened. So with the help of treatment courts and the funding that is so generously provided, and the programs that it funds, the things that help identify the actual problem, in 16 days I'll be celebrating my 4th year sober. So I appreciate very much the time, the opportunity to give me to speak, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Becky Sneen, and then Marlo Orth to follow Becky. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Becky Sneen, and I'm here also to speak on behalf of the treatment courts. I'm a current participant in AIM Court. First and foremost, AIM Court has drastically changed my life. About a year and a half ago, I didn't have any direction, any purpose in my life. My kids were no longer with me. I was heavily addicted. AIM Court has impacted me to make better choices that are beneficial to not only me, but also to my family. I am now in the process of, my kids are with me full-time, living with me full-time. I have ties to the community. I have a stable life. The stability that I do have now and the support that I have comes from AIM Court. Without AIM Court, a lot of the public resources and things I had no idea about. AIM Court has led me in that direction and helped me to become the person that I am today. I definitely cannot express enough gratitude to AIM Court, and then to all of you as well for the county for the funding that AIM Court has helped me with. And so I guess my reason for being here today is to show you that treatment court does work. I am standing here and I'm living proof that treatment court does work. And so to continue to hope that it's in the county funding. So thank you.
Thank you, Becky. And Marlo Orth, good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here representing Lake Eau Claire, and this is a resource that is very valuable to the entire county. And we're on a mission to save that lake. As you know, the lake is an impoundment. It's a river that's been dammed up. And what that ends up being is a huge sediment trap. And so just want to share with you, this was put in every supervisor's pocket here a couple weeks ago. I think you all got one, so I won't bother reading any of this. We've got a lot of things going on. The 3 things that we address at Lake Eau Claire is it's not just the sediment, but the fishery. We put in fish cribs. We drop trees. In fact, a couple weeks ago, they dropped another 45 trees into the lake. This makes tremendous fish habitat. We work on water quality. We have an aeration system that operates all summer until the lake turns over in the fall. And of course, the costly one is the sediment. And without your help, there's no way we would be able to save that lake. We've got 214 property owners around the lake, and we take all the resources we have, and we have fundraisers. We have a lake association. We do fundraisers, several fundraisers, and we work together like this, and we do things. And the cooperation we get from the county, from the departments, whether you talk about Parks and Forest or Land Conservation, the DNR, the City of Augusta, Bridge Creek, Ludington, like we do sediment on the small creeks, we get a crane to come in. Ludington furnishes 1 truck. City of Augusta furnishes 1 truck. Bridge Creek sends 2. And Parks and Forest is indicated they're going to share 1 with us for the day we do this. everything that we can do with volunteers, we do with volunteers. In addition, for the last couple of years, we've been involved in forming the Eau Claire watershed. And this is for the future, because this will open us up, this is the entire watershed, open us up to federal funds. And we're just starting to talk now, the last month, and now it's actually Thursday night again, this week Thursday, be talking more about it, looking at grants that we can apply for that would address the entire watershed. We have a bright future ahead of us, and I'm just here to thank you for all you do and being that great partner you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marlo. Those were all the individuals who signed up. Before closing the public hearing, I'll ask if there's anyone else from the public who'd like to speak this evening that didn't sign up. Okay, I don't see anyone. With that, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing. A motion by Supervisor Henning, second by Supervisor Schroffnagel. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. And once again, thank you to everyone who spoke this evening. Moving on to presentation of petitions, claims, and communications. Supervisor, we've got a few here. Supervisor McKinney.
Thank you. Go on?
Yep.
Hey. Thank you, Chairman Moore. I'm here. I want to extend an invitation. Jonah will be celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and on Sunday, that's this coming Sunday, November 12th, 4 to 6:30 p.m. at the Oxford Children's Theater, we will gather. You know, it's because of the great collaborations that Jonah has made with the county, judiciary, the treatment courts, the City County Health Department, those are just a couple, that I'm sure you'd all like to come and help us celebrate. So consider yourselves invited, again, this Sunday at 4 o'clock at the Children's Theater, and when you get to the door, just say Supervisor McKinney sent you.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Clark.
This is just a heads up for our deliberations tonight. I want to let you all know that last month, Colleen kissed the Blarney Stone. So she may even be more loquacious tonight than usual. Just a warning.
Okay. Thank you very much on that announcement. And included in your packet, of course, is communication from Corporation Counsel on the annual budget procedure. And I'll look to County Clerk Janet Loomis.
I put on everyone's desk a ballot access checklist. 2018 is the election for all the county board seats. I do have some papers tonight if anyone wants to look me up after the meeting and fill them out. Otherwise, you can come to our office at any time. Can't get signatures until December 1st, but the other papers you can fill out.
Thanks very much. Are there any other announcements that anyone would like to make this evening before we move on? I see none. With that, we'll move on to budget deliberations, and I'll ask for Supervisor Bates to come forward, please. And she'll preside over this portion of the agenda. So I took you off the mic here at this point, so this is the only one that's open today. And I'll take my key.
Yeah.
I want to thank Kathy Clark. Her credibility went right out the window. But in any case, here we are again. And at this point in time, I would look for a motion to go into our session to review the 2018 budget for the county board. Mike and Kim? Any discussion? Hopefully not. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And we are now in our session.
We're going to start this with just a brief presentation from the individuals that have been so heavily involved in helping to put this budget together. So our Administrator Kathy Schrock and our Finance Chair Jim Dunn.
Thank you. Our budget process actually begins very early in the year, as all of you are aware. And that process begins by reviewing exactly what it is we, as a county government, are here to do and to provide. And it is articulated in our mission, as well as our values and beliefs. I found the invocation at the beginning of the meeting to be a very good summary form of exactly what that mission statement and values and beliefs say. Not only are we informed by that part of our process, but the strategic plan that the board puts together every 2 years informs the process. We have very specific priorities and goals that are part of that strategic plan, but the concepts embodied within that plan also inform the departmental level initiatives and identify ways in which departments can work either uniquely on their own or collaboratively with other departments to forward the mission, the vision, and the values of the county through various goals. And you'll actually see that represented as you look through the departmental budgets, how departments have incorporated not only the world as it currently is, but it is responsive to our citizenry, it is responsive to the needs of our county, and it actually is not only balanced, but looks to the future as well. And actually, I believe Supervisor Bates is going to talk a little bit about the budget process.
First of all, I'm sure that this is very familiar to almost everyone who serves on the county board. But this information is more for the public in order that we can not only review where we've been, but to let them know how this process usually goes about. For all of us, the budget process perhaps never really stops. It's hardly a time goes by after we pass this, that we're into the next year's budget. And for many of us, that means that the process of overseeing the budget in our committees has already started. We look as time goes by, even though we're watching trends, we're watching what happens within those budgets, we also look for public input. And part of what I'd like to add to this is every one of our committees, including this county board, take time to have a public input part of their meetings. The public is always invited to our open meetings should they have any concerns or should they have contributions for us. As time goes by, then we seek more citizen input. And that citizen input often is in the public hearings that are held by the Finance Committee. And we have 3 of them. They're, I will say, quite well attended, perhaps more so in some of the smaller communities, even than in Eau Claire itself. And so again, for the public to have input on what they see as a need in our community, what they see as not working in our community, what they see as innovations, suggestions, we like to have them come to those meetings. And we like to get their input before we even begin looking at numbers. We want to know what is their desired level of service. And that tells us about the need. And also along with that, you establish not only parameters for what you're going to be doing, but is there a willingness to pay for what's going to be done? When we look at when those figures first began to be put together, county board members we tried to tie a lot of what we do back to the vision and the mission that the county puts forward. We just try to determine the level of service that not only will meet the need, but also meets the affordability of the people we serve. And along with that comes the responsibility as we go to put along performance measures. Anything that we add to the budget, we really also want to know how it works. We want to know whether or not the investments we make are worthwhile. And that's where we determine our return on investment. Certainly over the years, for those that have served for quite some period of time, you've seen some changes. But obviously, we try to improve that process every year as we go along. And I go back to our two other speakers here to talk more about what is the budget.
Thank you. The 4 definitions that I'm going to go through are actually from the Government Finance Officers Association, and they very quickly identify what our budget truly is. It is a policy document because it is reflective of what you as the board deem to be important in providing service to the citizens of Eau Claire County. It's the operations guide because this is the document that our departments will use as they make decisions throughout the coming year on implementing programs on behalf of the board. It's also a planning document because not only does it incorporate 2018 and the plans for 2018, but it looks to that long-term strategy in the future, as well as presenting schedules for capital spending and other future investments. And it's also our communications device where we as a county government share with the constituency we serve what our goals, agendas, and our policy decisions are. The proposed budget, the facts are actually in your book as well. You have a number of different charts and diagrams that show expenses, revenues. The screen right now simply shows the summary information of how the mill rate will be affected and some of the key inputs. For instance, net new construction, which was 2.024%. We are limited to that figure or 0, whichever is greater. The overall total change in actual dollars, however, is a 5.34%, and you see the total expenditures as well as part of that budget. Supervisor Dunning now is going to review the work of the Finance Committee in putting the budget together that you see before you this evening.
So what is the reality of where we are at and how can we approach the issues? We as the committee focused on 5 major philosophies derived from the strategic plan that was developed by the county board a couple of years ago. The first philosophy to look at was the preventive programs and services. This is what we should be looking at. And in the process of doing that, we looked at the mental health clinic with continued expansion of the CCS program and continued funding for the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council in court connection with the treatment courts. The second budget philosophy was to assure financial and institutional stability. And we're doing this by maintaining a bank-qualified debt, by developing long-term capital plans based on need and debt structure, and considering of alternative revenue sources. The next one is we also wanted to encourage programs that can help other departments. Examples of this are of the investment in information technology resources, total reward strategy toward employee retention and recruitment, investment in highway infrastructure, and changing methodologies. An example was higher PACER ratings with a lower cost per lane mile, as an example. And we also felt to look at the need for the future. And we looked at approaches to doing that, a strategic approach to budget development. We're building on core county resources that support the service areas, such as information systems, expansion of those, and human resources. And finally, the physical assets that we should be properly and timely maintaining. The budget reflects that because we're a long-term maintenance plan for infrastructure as well as an infrastructure investment in infrastructure systems. And finally, the last slide shows the difference, the average tax bill between taxing jurisdictions. If you look on, see that, you see this, what the portion of it is schools, what portion's town and village or city, the state and CVTC, as well as the county. The county is 25%. And that is how we fit into the property, into the budget, and I'll turn it back over to Colleen.
Thank you. And so now, as we look at what has already occurred, committees have done their work. Finance and Budget has taken their committee recommendations and looked at everything that they have pointed out. And the administrator has also looked at those same figures and determined what she would recommend. What the county board now has had for about the last week and a half to 2 weeks is the final proposal of the 2018 budget. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the recommended budget, the proposed budget, by each department. And if you have any questions as we go through these departments, please raise them. If you have, for those that have written amendments to the budget, when we come to the part of the budget where your particular amendment would be used, please explain what you are offering as an amendment. However, we will not vote on it at that time. It's simply that so you can see how it fits in to the bigger picture. I would suggest at that time also that as you talk or speak to your amendment, that you let the board know the page that it will impact and the program as well, so they can follow along. At the end of the review, then we will take the amendments, written form first. If there are other amendments, we will follow with them. We will act on each one independently. And at the end of that process, hopefully we will come to a conclusion that this is a budget that indeed will serve the county well and will move into our open session in order that we can approve it. So let's start. And that means initially that we will start right department by department. The first department that we will look at will be the Department of Administration. You will find that on pages 30 through 33 in your budget book. The information on this particular department will be very similar to what you see on each one, including the organization, the budget, the history, and so forth. There are 2 programs in this particular department. The next department in your budget book is the Aging and Disability Resource Center. You'll find it on pages 34 through 41. There are 6 programs involved in this department. The next department that we're going to look at is the airport. It's not actually a department, it's a contract that we have, but it's also included in our budget. Page 42 through 47, 3 programs. The next department is Circuit Court. Involves pages 48 through 52 and has just 1 program, the functions of the court. The next program is the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council, pages 53 through 58. 4 programs involved that they actually work with. The next department that we have is the Clerk of Court, pages 59 through 63. 1 program. Information in regard to the court you'll find there. Next we have the Corporate Counsel area, pages 64 through 71. There are 6 program areas with all of the information that impact those programs. On pages 76, through 82 is the clerk of courts.
Pardon me? I think you skipped county board.
I'm sorry, how could I do that? 72 county board. And I'll go over to where I left off, Department of Human Services. How many is it?
County clerk.
County clerk, page 76 through 82. 5 programs. And then Department of Human Services, page 83 through 106, 7 programs and a number of sub-programs as well. The District Attorney, page 107 through 112, 4 programs. Facilities, page 113 through 118, 4 programs. The Finance Department, page 119 through 124, 3 programs. Eau Claire County, City County Health Department, page 125 through 135, 6 programs. The Highway Department, page 38 through 143, 6 programs. Human Resources, 3 programs. Supervisor Clark.
I will be offering 2 amendments. One to restore the recognition dollars, and one to fund a reclassification of an employee.
Thank you for that information, and people may want to make note of that. Could you also mention where you what category you would put those in? Under what program area?
Under what program? It would be administration, I believe. One would be personnel, and one would be services and supplies.
Thank you for that information. Information Systems, page 151. Excuse me, I'm seeing, I can't watch both places at once well here, I guess. Supervisor Leary, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question for the Human Resources Committee about the status of the health insurance. When will that be approved, and is that information included as part of the budget? I believe it is, but I just thought it would be nice.
Yes, it is included in the budget.
But has it been approved by the Human Resources Committee yet?
Yes. When you say approved, it's approved as part of the budget process. They don't take specific action, they're kept abreast of the process and are informed of the renewal rates along with the rest of the board.
I always thought in the past we approved that, so that's why I was just speaking for clarification.
Thank you for that question. The next department that we have is Information System, page 151 through 157, 3 programs. And the Department of Planning and Development, get the right word there. Page 158 through 171, 8 programs. Parks and Forests, page 172 through 178, 4 programs. Purchasing, 179 through 185, 3 programs. Probate, and the Clerk of Juvenile Court, page 186 through 189, and there are 2 separate programs. The Register of Deeds, starting on 190, and going through 194. And next is the Sheriff's Department, starting on 195. Excuse me. Supervisor Wilkie.
Well, we're on such a roll here, I hate to share some information in some ways. First of all, I want you to take a look at page 196 in the sheriff's budget in the bullet points, and if you would go down to the very last bullet point. In fact, you could even go to the very last sentence on that page. Without a significant change in the upward trends, it may become necessary to complete the construction of the 4th jail pod and/or to ship inmates to other counties. Our sheriff reported that to us, I'm sure you all recall, at his annual meeting, that there was concern about that. I did want to draw this out and to your attention that I found out today that in fact, at least as of this afternoon, plans were being made to have to ship out 25 inmates out of our county jail. Now, as you all know, operating capacity is supposed to be at 80%. However, over the weekend, we were at 94%. Now, this is going to be complicated from the standpoint of that the adjoining counties also are challenged for space. So we may be faced with having to ship these folks to 2 and 3 counties away. At this time, they are making efforts to mitigate the cost in shipping out as well, which is including the plan on utilizing some of the Hubert space. You know, they'll evaluate the inmates that they think don't need quite as secure setting and be placing them there. But in addition to that, the 25 inmates are going to need to be shipped out. Now, if something changes magically in the next few days, that'd be great, but they are putting in plans to do that. The cost to that, the rough estimate that I got is we're looking at about $1,000 a day for at 25 inmates, if it stays at that number. Now, they're making every effort they can to take that added cost and manage it within their 2016 budget is their intent, because they understand they have a fiscal responsibility. In addition to that, Judiciary and Law, I know, has on their agenda, as well as Deanna, our coordinator for our treatment courts, is taking a closer look at why just more recently we've had somewhat of a downturn in the numbers that are in our treatment court. One would speculate that there's some correspondence to that. So those are the things that are happening in there, and I thought it was incumbent that I draw that to the attention of the supervisors. We've been being told this for some time is going to come. Well, the hour is upon us, unless, like I said, there's a quick change. A correlating issue to that is, and Judiciary and Law, and I know Human Resources Committee are working very diligently on this, is the continued challenge to fill the vacant positions that are in the jail. If you go back about a number of weeks ago, we were at 4 vacancies, and of course we were extremely concerned about that, and everybody's working due diligently. Well, our current status is, as of today, we have 6 vacancies up in the jail. This creates a situation. Where the correctional officers are having to continually be ordered in, which obviously puts more stress on them doing that job, which perpetuates the probability of losing those jailers. So this is a issue that this board is going to be needing to aggressively address. It is going to have fiscal impact, but I thought it'd be incumbent that I make you aware of it. I know there are efforts being made that in the recruitment process, they now have, as I understand, and the administrator can correct me if I'm wrong, or the chair of Human Resources, but have in place the rolling applications rather than, get an eligibility list and use it up. They're doing that as aggressively as they can. Of course, the sheriff, as he expressed to us in his annual report, you don't want to start lowering these standards for your correctional officers. That can increase your liability and the safety of your jail. It might recruit a few more folks, but not be a good thing. You heard the sheriff also mention that he is doing that open house, hoping to attract more. Where my point goes, in addition, not that correctional officers are going to be attracted or retained in those positions because of benefits or wages, but it is a factor. So we're going to need, as a board, to look very aggressively at what we can do. Now, this board to this point has done, and I believe the committee in good faith and struggled with trying to see what we could do to promote protective status for those positions. I've come to the painful conclusion that the county can't do a whole lot more. Corp Counsel has provided us with a strong opinion that we don't have the authority to put them in protective status because they don't meet one of the criteria of defined as active law enforcement. That's a debatable point, but Corp Counsel has made it clear that his opinion is that we don't meet that threshold. So now we're left at the, so to speak, mercy of the state, that they correct this situation so that at least as a county, we will be able to make that policy decision, do we want to or do we not want to provide protective status for our employees in the jail. I'm of the opinion that it won't magically recruit and retain all employees 100%, but it would be a significant factor in keeping them on board. I'm also of the strong opinion, I think we have a moral obligation to do that for our correctional officers.
Supervisor Wilkie, I wonder if you can bring your discussion back to anything that is
One final.
to the figures in this particular budget, this proposed budget.
Say again, Madam Chair?
You're drifting into
Okay.
matters that are not on our.
Well, they're in the matter I was just addressing was in, and I should have, you make a good point, I should have pointed that out. It's under bullet 2 on page 196 there as well, regarding recruitment. Sufficient numbers of qualified applicants to meet the staffing needs is becoming more difficult. That's putting it nicely, and I'll leave it there, but this all said, this does at some point will have a fiscal impact on, I think, this budget. Exactly how, I'm not sure, and in future budgets. Thank you for the extended time.
And you're welcome. I'm hopefully individuals that have had your budget book for quite some time have had the opportunity to read some of the issues that departments face. Those are not issues that basically are likely to be resolved with this budget, but we'll go back to continuing our progress through the budget document. The next department that we look at in our budget, following the sheriff's budget, is the treasurer on page 211 through 214. Following that is the extension, the University of Wisconsin extension budget.
Madam Chair?
Excuse me, Supervisor Wilkie.
On page, excuse me for going back, on page 201, and this probably is a simple yes or no that the administrator can help me with. The last 4 years, and the Judiciary Law Committee has got this on a future agenda, but may not need to if this budget took care of it. But for the last 4 years, our anti-drug program has been running a deficit. And of course, as a good auditor will do, they will put that in our audit every time it's something they need to report. A special revenue fund that's running a deficit, and that every year that I can recall that they talk about our need to allocate funds for it. Does this budget take care of that deficit?
Actually, the budget itself, this budget does not take care of that, but actions that we are taking in 2017 will take care of that. The finance director has identified those funds which are part of the specific grant. Those will remain in the fund and they are in a positive position. And the deficit will be absorbed as part of the 2017 budget as we reallocate those funds more appropriately back into just regular operations as part of the sheriff's general fund.
So it's safe for me to say that the next audit won't have that in like it's worked the last 4 years?
You are correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. University of Wisconsin Extension, pages 215 to 222, 6 program areas. And the final department that we look at is the Veterans Department. Are there any questions in regard to that?
Did we skip over treasurer?
No, I believe we did not, but we certainly can. At this point in time, we could go back to that if you have a question.
No.
Fine. His question was, did we skip over the treasurer? No, we did not. Now, that's the end of the department, and so I would suggest that for those that have amendments to the budget, that especially those that have been pre-written, that we go back to those at this point in time. And Supervisor Clark, since you actually were able to introduce at least some ideas to the, oh, excuse me, Supervisor Dunn, did you have a question?
Well, we have an amendment that was on the library to,
Okay.
that was passed out as part of the addendum.
All right, would you like to just give a brief explanation of that?
Okay, it's part of the 2018 is library funds for the Fall Creek Public Library. The figures came in after we had prepared the budget, and so this is a correction, and they will be of amount of $6,640, and it will be put on the levy, but it's exempt from the levy limits.
Thank you for that information. Supervisor Furness. Supervisor Peconis.
Thank you. I also have an proposed amendment, and I need to mention that I believe there's an error in what has appeared in our addendum. It indicates that it's a proposed amendment for the clerk of courts, but I think it's an amendment for the circuit court. So it's attributed to the wrong department. The amendment has to do with the psychiatrist and psychologist fee increase. And so, I mean, do I have to amend the amendment? I mean, how's that work? Correct the amendment?
Thank you. Then, at this point in time, then, thank you for those kind of heads up on both of those. I'm going to go back to Supervisor Clark, who had the first two amendments, and let's address those at this point in time.
I would like to move Amendment 1.
Would you like to read that?
We need a second.
Is there a second? Supervisor Leary? And I think the amendment reads to reinstate $3,750 for employee recognition.
Thank you. The county's 2016-2018 strategic plan outlined values that have been embraced by the human resources staff and committee to ensure that we provide a structure and a means of work to support our county staff. The very first thing on our, it's the, I always forget the name of these 6 things, but it's our attempt to make this a workplace which is the first choice of employment for people in Mitchell County, or in Eau Claire County. This is not a request for an additional, no, I got the wrong one. This is the, Amendment 1 is the first element of the county's total rewards program. That's what it is, and strategy. Our budget for employee recognition has been dwindling over the years. I know when I first got on what was then called the Personnel Committee, it was fairly substantial. And over the years, it has been cut back and cut back. And I think it's important that we let our employees know that they are indeed important to the county and to this county board. A thank you is important. And whether it comes as an attaboy or whether it comes as a trinket or whatever, It's good to have a thank you, and it's good for people to be able to anticipate getting a thank you for a job well done. We had a committee that worked very hard over the last year or a little more to put together a recognition program that they felt was adequate and affordable, and then it was cut from the budget. And I would like to implement that plan using the $3,750, put it back into the budget, and the money would come from the medical examiner's budget. I have been assured that there is plenty of money in there to spare this much. So I urge your support.
Thank you. And is there anyone else wishing to speak to this amendment? Supervisor Henny.
I'm curious if on page 150, it says the recognition committee request for additional funds is $5,750. Is that in this, you just said, Supervisor Clark, $3,750?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Would you like to explain that, or perhaps you could?
Actually, the original request had been trimmed down to 2,000, and that's why to restore it to the 5,750, you only need to add back 3,750.
Are there any other questions, or is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I think this is the time to pick up your pad and vote. If you are in favor of this amendment to the human resource budget, you will vote aye. If not, you will vote no. And that passes with the exception of one no vote. So it has been passed. Now, would you like to go on to your next amendment, Supervisor Clark?
I would like to move Amendment 2, which deals with reclassification of a current employee in human resources.
And is there a motion to that effect? It looks like Supervisor Miller, and seconded by Supervisor Gatlin. An explanation, please.
First of all, this is not a request for additional staff. It is a request for a reclassification of current staff in order to provide continuity and continuity of service, and to ensure that all of the projects, and there are many of them, have a point person. No matter what's happening in the office, there should be a point person who is responsible for a particular part of the work of human resources. This will enhance services for areas such as employee engagement, succession planning, which is big. Right now, we have to really start doing a lot of work on succession planning, retention and recruitment, and it will provide a proactive approach to issues in the HR department or in the county as a whole. The Human Resources Committee has been very pleased with the amount of data that we have gotten over the last 2 or 3 quarters. It's been very informative. We wanted to know how many applications, where did they find out about us, and so on and so on. And we are given that information at meetings. It's been very helpful and very enlightening and eye-opening, to say the least. I believe, as does the rest of the committee, that it is time to recognize the importance of this department. It is not just one department. It provides services for the whole county staff. And sometimes that's easy to forget that they do that. We should give them the tools they need to move forward. And with our total reward strategy, and this will give us one more tool to reach our goal to make the county the employee of choice in the Chippewa Valley. This is important, and I urge your support. The dollars, again, will come from the medical examiner budget.
Supervisor Olson, please.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Is this a reclassification, change in classification, or is this a step increase within the classification they're at?
This is a reclassification.
Okay, and the second question was this run then through the consultant that we hired to compare, and what was her opinion?
Yes.
Anytime that we have a reclassification request, we run those materials through the consultant for appropriate placement within the salary schedule. So the placement was determined by the consultant, is what I'm saying. Sorry, I was confusing.
Supervisor Anton, please.
This question has to do with the abilities, excuse me, to work in various elements of that department. Are we satisfied that we are cross-training our people so that in the case of unexpected absence or additional workload, we're prepared to not only, as we said earlier, cover these jobs well with a point person, but cover them on a cross-trained basis so they're as competent service?
Do you want to answer that, Supervisor Clark?
Cross-training is going on, and this position will definitely help with that.
And it looks as though I have no other questions. And so what you have before you in this amendment is to reinstate $4,818 for personnel funding that would appear as an individual dealing with reclassification within the department.
This person would be reclassified.
Supervisor Cronus, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reclassification, I think, to actually state it correctly, is this is a promotion. This is a department with 4 individuals. There's it's my understanding that all the individuals in the department already have a pretty substantially high classification. I'm opposed to this because of that. So we're talking about an individual who's, I believe, rated at an R level on the McGrath study, and it's going to be moved to an S level. So they're all ranked very high. There is another individual who's one step below that who already actually has the title supervisor. So while Supervisor Clark refers to it as a reclassification, I think we need to be looking at this as a promotion. It's being classified differently. It's being moved up another step. So just so that we have it, I say, more adequately described.
Thank you for that information. Supervisor Clark?
Well, if we want to nitpick, all reclassifications are promotions when there is a person in that position. But it means that if this person leaves, if the person who is presently on staff leaves, next person would be hired in the range that this person is now. So it is a reclassification of the position. We have to always look at the position rather than the person.
Supervisor Crowley, please.
Thank you. Is this the person that was hired at $90,000 some time ago? And is this the proper place to be making changes in wage and structure like that? I think, of course, the human resources person is or the department is a support function in any organization. It's not unusual, that's what they do.
Is your question whether or not this is appropriate for this discussion?
That's part of it, yeah. Is this the appropriate place for that particular request?
I think basically because this is reinstating funds.
It's actually, any changes as far as organizational structure and personnel is a actual part of the budget process per se, by its very nature. So yes, it is appropriate.
Since we just went through a restructuring not, what, a year ago or something like that, that's why I'm questioning why it's brought up now.
Actually, you're actually speaking to a different position. The position that you're referring to, Supervisor Kronig, is the position that was created when we actually split payroll and benefits into two separate positions, so this is different. It is not the same position.
I'm talking about the overall restructuring of wages and positions and stuff like that sometimes.
And just to answer his question, Supervisor Clark?
This is the appropriate place. Every year, the Human Resources Department looks at all position requests. And this one was approved at that time when that was requested. And so it has gone through the proper channels, and now it had been added into their budget and very well documented the need for it. And so it is included in the overall budget, and we're asking to have it reinstated or put back into the budget.
Supervisor Miller.
First, I think Supervisor Kronig was referring to the class comp study that was done almost, 2 years plus. And it's not unusual to come back around and revisit on a periodic basis some of the positions, and we have different departments that have made such requests, so that does happen. In addition, I do want to speak in support of this, not just because I sit on the Human Resources Committee, but because the Judiciary and Law Committee. We have been struggling for, when I say we, the whole Sheriff's Department has been struggling for just an awful long time in getting staff to come on board, and particularly in the Correctional Officer Division, and being able to retain those individuals, to keep them there once they're trained and settled in. And it's now creating an impact on the officers and the jail and the overcrowding and what have you, and a safety issue, and I could go on and on and on. But the bottom line is, the Human Resources Department has really stepped up to the bat on this whole department, and they have done a phenomenal job that has never happened in the past. And whatever we can do to help support the Human Resources Department to continue supporting all of the other departments in this county, I'm all for that, because they are going like gangbusters and coming up with innovative ideas and working with the Sheriff's Department to try to resolve the issues that we are having with the lack of staffing in the jail. Thank you.
I do not have anyone else who is apparently wishing to speak on this issue. So the motion before you is to reinstate $4,818 for increased personnel funding within the human resource area. Please take your pads and record your vote. And that motion passes with a margin of 7 against and the rest for. And now Supervisor Dunning, I'm wondering if you'd like to bring forth your amendment.
That's resolution 3, it is the library funding, and as soon as I find it. It was, the Fall Creek Library had not submitted their final request as our budget went to press, and so we need an additional $6,640 to do that. It will be part of the levy. That's where the funding will come from, but it is exempt from levy limits. So I guess if there's further explanation of that, maybe the administrator can determine that.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that was sufficient.
All right. Are there any questions in regard to this? This is putting into the budget a corrected amount that will not be used as part of the levy. It's not included in the levy limit, I should say. Is there, by the way, is there a second to that motion? Kathy Clark, please, Supervisor Clark. And are you wishing to speak to it?
No, I was just going to say.
Thank you. And seeing no one else interested in contributing to this discussion, I would urge you to take your pads and vote your desire. Supervisor Wilkie? There we go, one more. Supervisor Wilkie, we got it. And that passes unanimously. Supervisor Pagonis, would you like to bring forth your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move amendment number 4. This is for an increase in the psychiatrists and psychologists that are used by the courts. I'm a little confused about the amendment that I apparently authored because it says clerk of court, which it really should say, I believe, circuit court is where is the program description area, but the revenue will be sort of whipped out of the clerk of courts.
Supervisor Pagonis is correct.
I'll second it.
And are you making that motion, Supervisor Pagonis?
I'm making the motion and I'm making an amendment to the amendment.
Thank you.
I'm making a double motion. A correction to the amendment.
A correction to the amendment. And Supervisor Dunning is seconding that.
And if you want me to speak to it, I could speak pretty quickly regarding this. I believe this also appeared before Judiciary and Law. It's pretty common that we get amounts for local psychiatrists and psychologists to do evaluations of individuals who are before the courts, particularly in the criminal courts. And so we compensate them at a lower rate than what they normally enjoy, and if we do not entertain this increase, we will have a lot more difficulty in getting psychiatrists and psychologists to be willing to work with the county. So it's necessary for the courts to have the analyses that these individuals do. And so this is what the requested amount was.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second discussion, and I have Supervisor Conlon.
I believe the motion was for the first motion. Do we need another motion to amend the first motion? And if so, I'll make it.
I did. It's an editorial correction.
Okay.
And so basically it doesn't really require another motion.
Then I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions in regard to this particular amendment? Seeing none, please take your pads, and the amendment is offered by Supervisor Pagonis It's an increase in fee for psychiatrists and sociologists at $16,310. Please use your pad to record your vote. Well, it honestly came up like right now. And that passes unanimously. Are there any other amendments to come from the floor? Any other amendments to come from the floor? Seeing none, then do we need to review the capital budget? Are there any questions at all in regard to the capital budget? It's the one thing that we didn't raise, and Supervisor Wilkie, please.
Yes, I was curious, and there may be a logical explanation for this. Obviously, when we do the capital budget, the funding source most often is going to be bonding, or if there's an equipment fund, it would be used to fund it. And that's the case in all the departments, but I was wondering, except one, I was wondering why the Human Services Department is having to use levy dollars for 3 of those items in theirs, whereas other departments aren't. Why wasn't those ones bonded for as well? On page 233 is what I'm looking at Human Services, building improvements and upgrade, smart boards, workstations. Why were those not bonded for instead of using levy dollars, which are hard to come by?
Thank you. Just a moment. We'll see who can answer that question.
I'll take that.
Thank you.
Actually, I think it's a combination answer, and I know that our Human Services Director is here as well. Some of the levy dollars were actually budgeted as part of the budget that was submitted. The other is, and it was left there because we are trying to keep our bonding amount bank qualified. And so you'll note that not only is it using levy there are some other uses of levy, and there are some where we are actually using fund balance rather than actually bonding for that month, for the project itself. So the work that we did with funding was to maintain that bank qualified position.
So, $70 or roughly $70,000 wouldn't put us over that limit that we're trying to keep, I believe. So, not that I have something in mind, but if there was a need for roughly $70,000 to fund something, that could be switched to bonding, and we'd have $70,000 towards, if needed, an item. Is that accurate on my part? So if somebody's sitting here saying there's something urgent that I think needs to be funded, and of course maybe the only avenue is going to be levy dollars, and we're at the max, that could be changed to bonding and come up with $70,000?
I'm going to defer that question to Amy Wong, our finance director, from the standpoint of the calculation for the bank qualified, because you also have to include the fees in that.
Yes, so it'd be less than the 70, it would be, what, 65,000?
I'm not certain. One
Something
moment,
like that.
please.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at last year's and pulling up the budget from sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm also pulling up the budget from last year because I believe the Human Services capital requests were funded by levy in prior years as well. It was probably, I think it was about 58,000 last year, and it was levy.
Okay.
So just to be consistent.
Okay, last year, but I'm looking at this year. I'm just wanting to be sure if there's somebody on this board floor that is aware of something of significance that should be funded or put back into the budget, there is the ability to bond for those and have the 65,000. Am I correct in that assessment?
Thank you. I think there's a side discussion going on up here. try to determine how this matter can be resolved.
The concern would be that if we actually take that off of levy and we put it onto the actual bonding, it will put us over the amount because we don't have the fees included and we're already at 9.8 on the bonding.
So how much before we, then if it's not 65,000, is there any dollars there that could be bonded for, that wouldn't put us over that mark? Is there 30,000 sitting there?
Supervisor Pagonis, please.
Thank you. I just want to speak against, I understand what Supervisor Wilkie is asking to do. The issue is that to be bank qualified, we bonded 10 million. Right now, we're 120,000 under that. It's perilously close to that $10 million because once we start adding in fees and other costs associated with it, it would take us to the brink. And to be that close is dangerous because it plays havoc with our interest rates, it plays havoc with the number of bids that we get. We just voted on bonding a few meetings ago. We had several really attractive bids. We're getting bids from a variety of locations. So I would discourage Supervisor Wilkie from contemplating that, considering that, because we don't have the wiggle room to be able to, if we push it right up to the limit, it could easily flop over, and then we would have to look at projects that we aren't doing or looking at other things. So I'm respectful of what your thoughts are, but I don't think that's a place to get it levied.
Supervisor Wilkie, please.
Okay, yeah, I don't argue what you're saying. There is wiggle room in there. And if you recall, when the auditor was here, I asked the question, you know, what was that magic threshold? And I got a clear message that they wouldn't flinch if I think he even used the term flinch, if we didn't go over that mark. And I'm hearing you now tell me that we could go 120,000 more bonding and we don't even hit that mark. So I guess then my point still remains, if somebody here feels that there is something of very importance to this county and needs levy dollars, that is a place where you can get levy dollars, and you will not jeopardize our bonding rating. Our auditor told us that, as long as we don't go over that mark.
I'm afraid Supervisor Wilkie misunderstood me.
Okay.
I just want to say, I'm afraid Supervisor Wilkie misunderstood me because I'm saying we do not have sufficient wiggle room because we're only 120,000 below the top limit of what we want to get. So we need to be 10 million or below. And right now, we're only 120,000 below. There is no wiggle room because there are other costs that are going to be associated with it.
Administrator Cobb, do you want to add?
Supervisor Pagonis is correct.
Well, 120,000 sounds like a wiggle room to me, but okay.
That's our fees that we need when we actually go to bond for the issuance costs.
In any case, it appears as though it's not something that our administrator would advise. And so we have finished our review of the budget, and I would entertain a small break. Oh, excuse me. Supervisor Craney, did you have something you wanted to add here?
Yes, could I ask a question about this revenues thing that's on our desk?
Sure.
On the back page, under other revenue, it says bond proceeds / landfill. I'm wondering what that is.
And that's on the handout, not in the book itself.
Correct. Revenues.
Under revenues.
it's 247 as well. Page 247.
Are you able to look at that?
Yes.
Just take a minute.
One moment, please.
Thank you.
That's the highway portion of the 2018 bonding.
So that would be
Does that answer your question?
What was the answer?
Oh, that would be the funding portion for highway operations that is coming from the bond, so it shows as a revenue for highway projects.
Why does it say land?
I don't know why they have that on the coding. This report is actually a report that is directly just pulled out of the system, and so it's a matter of how they code the various functions, but those are the funds that are used for highway.
And so basically it shows up as a revenue stream even though it's bond fund. Supervisor Conlon, please.
Yeah, I just have I'm not sure if it's the right time to ask, but Supervisor Wilkie brought up possibly needing a new jail cell and staffing for it. Is there an idea of what that would cost if we had to do that?
At this point, we would have to go back and look and take costs from when the current jail facility was built and look at those and then apply some overall increases to them to find out what that number is. At this point, we do not have that, and there is no addition to the jail incorporated into the overall capital plan. So we will have to begin compiling that information.
And as far as staffing a 24-hour position, is that 5 people or is it?
We would have to verify the actual number of set positions required for an additional jail unit, and we would be able to provide all of that. I'm fairly certain that as we continue to look at options and opportunities and what we're going to do regarding that population, that will be one of the facts that we will be pulling together as part of that discussion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would look for a motion that we take a recess by Mark Wilson and seconded by Mark Beckfield. About 15 minutes, and it will take a little time to reconfigure the results of our deliberations, and we will proceed after the break with our regular meeting agenda.
Okay, we'll get started. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Supervisor Bates, for presiding over the budget deliberations. Appreciate that. We have on our desks file 80 on the alterations to the budget, but Amy is still working on, and we'll come back here in a few minutes with a hard copy of the tax levy, file 81. So we'll come back to those 2 items in a little bit and move on to reports of the county board. The contingency fund is there on page 7 of your meeting materials. We'll move on to first reading of ordinances by committees, and this is something we actually took up in the budget deliberations. So if there's no objection, I'd like to take this up under suspension of the rules. I see no objection, so I'll ask the clerk to read file 73.
To amend section 4.15.010 of the code, fees of professional examiners and witnesses in chapter 51, involuntary commitment proceedings.
And because we're taking that up under suspension of the rules, no need for a motion. But I would look to, this was acted on, but Supervisor Dunning, do you want to add anything to this? Or Supervisor Miller, because Judiciary Law took this up.
No, we, Finance and Budget looked at this and it was approved. And
okay. Supervisor Miller, do you want to add anything?
Again, the Committee on Judiciary and Law had reviewed this. We've discussed it periodically over the years, And we are in total agreement, and that's actually what we just acted on in a budget alteration, so.
Okay, any questions or discussion on this motion, on this matter? I see none, so if you please take your keypads and vote. It's file 73, amending the section of the code dealing with the fees of professional examiners and witnesses and Chapter 51 involuntary commitment proceedings. Supervisor Bates, if you'd re-vote there, please, and do it one more time. Thank you very much. And that motion is adopted unanimously. Moving on to reports of standing committees, file 67.
This ordinance establishes new fees in sections 4, 15, and 16.
Oh, okay. Actually, I was at 67, just above that.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Drammond.
May I have a motion, please? A motion by Supervisor Leary, second by Supervisor Lavelle, and an explanation by Supervisor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. This is rezoned 0.6 acres from AP Agriculture Preservation District to AR Floating Agriculture District. This still falls under, the property owner has 3.5 acres with a home on it. There, on this corner, there's actually a lease where he goes in, or an easement where he goes into his property. And the farmer that has this piece of land can't farm it anyway because it's so small. And so he's selling it to this other property owner where the easement is, and so that way he'll own it, and his land is already AR, so it'll all fit.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Any questions for Supervisor Gibson or discussion on this matter? Supervisor DeLuca.
I'm glad to see that they're doing the AR instead of the A2. I did have a question. On page 14, underneath the Eau Claire comprehensive plan, number 2, preferred housing density is 1 unit per 20 or more acres, but yet local plans can be more or less restrictive. General range from 1 unit per 5 acres to 1 unit per 35. So they're still below 5 acres. Is that a concern for the county not meeting our comprehensive plan?
Supervisor Gibson, can you speak to that? And I know Rod Esslinger, Director of the Planning and Development Department, is here.
Yeah, it's not a concern. I mean, AR it restricts it 35 acres from like 40 parcels so that you can't rezone it, so this fits right into that zoning.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I see none, so please vote on file 67. The motion is to amend the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Drammond as described. Supervisor Buchanan, if you try that one more time, please. Thank you very much. That motion is adopted unanimously. Moving on to file 57.
This ordinance establishes new fees in sections 4, 15, and 16 of the Eau Claire County Code.
May I have a motion, please? A motion by Supervisor Gatlin, second by Supervisor Schroffnagel, and an explanation by Supervisor Dunn.
Well, this is the summary of all of the fee changes that the departments have made throughout as part of their budget process, and this will, when it's put in place, will deliver the income that was predicted by their budgets. So it's not as big as it has been in other years, but this is what we have for this year.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this matter or discussion? I see none, so please vote on file 57, amending various user fees. What? It's set for discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Just one moment, we'll get you Okey-dokey. So you can vote. And that motion is adopted unanimously. And file 79.
Authorizing payment of vouchers over 10,000 issued during the month of October 2017.
Find out pages 31 to 32. May I have a motion, please? Motion by Supervisor Smyer, second by Supervisor Beckfield. Any questions on the vouchers this month or discussion? I see none, so please vote on this motion to authorize payment of vouchers over $10,000. And that's unanimously. Going back to the budget, we do have file 80. Why don't we take that up? And Amy was having some printer problems, so Catherine's in touch to have her email it to us. So we should have an email coming in with file 81 momentarily here. We'll deal with file 80. That was distributed, placed on your desks, a report of file 80. And do you want to read it?
This is a report on the alterations to the proposed 2018 county budget.
May I have a motion, please? Motion by Supervisor Cronk, second by Supervisor Conlon. Any questions on this matter? Before you, these are the 4 amendments that we voted on. I see none, so please take your keypads and vote on file 80 on the alteration of the proposed 2018 county budget. Okay, and that is adopted unanimously. And file 81 is a report of the county board establishing the 2017 tax levy for Eau Claire County. And we don't quite have it. Let me check my email. If you could forward it on, that'd be great. To everyone. Okay. Just went, so go into your email, check an email, it should be coming in, and there it is, from Catherine Shaw, 1718, file 1718. So take a moment to get that Excel spreadsheet document up on your screen so you all have it. It's loading, and there it is. Okay. Oh, there it is. Yes. Okay, is your email? Why don't you look on to somebody next to you? It's it came in my email. Who did not get it? I see Supervisor Olson's didn't come in yet. Why don't you swing by and reflect? You didn't get it either?
I just got it.
Maybe it'll take a moment, but it's a fairly long caption, so we'll give the clerk a chance to read the caption. Yep.
This is a report, or this is a resolution. It's the report of the county board establishing the 2017 tax levy for Eau Claire County at $32,235,911, authorizing the appropriations for the city county health department of $1,200,468 to be levied on all parts of the county except for the city of Eau Claire, establishing the state tax for forestry purposes at $0 and other special state charges at $77, authorizing the appropriation for the state trust fund loans of $123,929 to be levied on all parts of the county, authorized a county tax for county aid to bridges at $200,000 to be charged against all non-exempt parts of the county, authorizing $3,678 of one-time levy for refunded taxes to be levied on all parts of the county, authorizing a county tax of $702,137 for county library services to be charged against all non-exempt townships, authorizing a county special charge for intermunicipal library services amounting to $208,898 based on the circulation of library materials to the cities of Altoona, Augusta, Eau Claire, and the village of Fall Creek, and as herein indicated.
May I have a motion, please? A motion by Supervisor Henning, second by Supervisor Smyer. This captures what's included in the budget. Why don't you take a moment to read through it if there's questions about anything that's in here. But Supervisor Dunning, do you want to add anything to this about what we're looking at here?
No. Other than Dan. Yeah.
Administrator Schroff, do you want to say anything about this? But it's with confidence that what we're seeing in front of us is what was in the budget book. That we, okay. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know there's a lot here in front of us. It doesn't look like the overall total approved tax, or the amount has increased that much, but does that breakdown per equalized, per 1,000 equalized, has that changed much at all? I couldn't see it on the...
The only thing that would have changed in that is that you would see a slight increase in the overall expenditures because of the levy in library, because that increased the levy itself, but the breakdown itself should not change.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Are folks, do you want another minute or two to take a look at this? Or are folks ready to vote? I see no request for additional time. Is there anyone who would like additional time? I see none, so it appears to me that you're, oh, Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On line 3, it says the 2017 tax levy. Isn't this supposed to be the 2018?
Okay, Janet?
It's the 2018 budget, but it's 2017 tax levy.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? It's my determination that you appear ready to vote, so please take your keypad. The motion before us, it's file 81. I won't read all of it, but it's the motion to establish the 2017 tax levy for Eau Claire County, file 81. So if you please vote on that now. And that motion is adopted unanimously. That brings us to the end of our agenda for our annual meeting dealing with the budget. This is our last meeting in November, so the next meeting is scheduled for the first Tuesday of December. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and Eau Claire County. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.